for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson, your host today. The jury has the Donald Trump hush money trial. We'll tell you the latest on that. Oh my gosh, that is great news. Hopefully he gets convicted. We have a lot of stuff about Gaza and Israel. A New York City nurse was fired for referring to the Gaza genocide in a speech where she was accepting an award. Also, police have dismantled the pro-Palestinian camp at Wayne State University in Detroit. That has been there for quite some time. Good news for Palestine, as Spain, Norway, and Ireland have formally recognized a Palestinian state. That is big news. Israel is really upset about that. Let them be upset as far as I care. Antony Blinken is going after Russian misinformation after hinting that the U.S. may allow Ukraine to strike inside of Russia, and that is to defend themselves. We've got great news out of Texas. We've gotten rid of another fake Democrat down there. Plus, we've got all sorts of stuff. Right now, before we get started with today's topics, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on X at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube and Mastodon by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, X, Tumblr, YouTube, and Mastodon accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us on your local Pacifica affiliate. We are recording this show on Thursday, May 30th, 2024. And let's go ahead.
Stop. Time.
We got to start right out of the gate with hammer time. Time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week, and it's been a while since we've given this award out to our recipient. Representative Marjorie Trader Greene out of Georgia gets the Duke this week. I have this story. This is Joanna Greenaway writing for CBS Texas. This is dated May 18th out of Washington. Here's how CBS has this wrote up. What was meant to be a hearing focused on U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland turned into a chaotic conversation between Georgia Republican Representative Marjorie Trader Greene and two Democrats, New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett. By the way, Jasmine Crockett has become my new hero because she did the epic clapback of the century. And it was great. So a couple of weeks ago, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee was having a Thursday night hearing. Lawmakers were working toward voting on whether to find U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt for refusing to turn over audio recordings between President Biden and Special Counsel Robert Hur. Well, we've got the audio because this was all televised. So here's the audio of what happened. Now, this is going to be in clips. The first clip here is Representative Marjorie Trader Greene getting into it with Jasmine Crockett in the first place. Here you go.
I'd like to know if any of the Democrats on this committee are employing Judge Merchan's daughter.
Please tell me what that has to do with Merrick Garland.
Is she a porn star?
Oh, Goldman. That's right. He's advising. Okay.
He's advising who? What? Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about
just
AG.
I don't
Point
think
of-
you
point
know
of
what
order.
you're here
President.
for.
Well, you the one talking about. I guess
I
you still
think your
stuck in the
fake
courtroom.
eyelashes are messing up
No,
what you're
ain't
reading.
nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman,
That's beneath
would
even
you
you,
please
Mr. Green. That's
regain
beneath
order
even
of your
you.
committee?
Order.
Please.
There's a point of order.
We have a point of order. Mr. Lynch, state your point.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Green's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack
meeting will
the
suspend.
physical
Meeting will
appearance of another
suspend.
person?
Are your
Move
feelings hurt?
her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play. with
Baby
me.
girl?
We're gonna,
I don't think
We are going to
so.
move, and we're going to take your words down.
I
Thank you very
second
much.
that motion.
So Marjorie is being a bully right there, commenting on Representative Crockett's eyelashes, which is a personal attack, by the way. Whether or not you think it is a personal attack, period, end of story. She's going after her appearance, not her character, not what she said, but what she looks like. So an argument ensued, and as you heard, AOC wanted Marjorie Trader Green's comments taken down. Marjorie Trader Green, in the next clip here, says that she'll take her words down, but she won't apologize for them, which means that she's keeping her words up. So we'll play this clip right now. Take a listen.
Ms. Green agrees to strike her words.
I believe she
Chair
should apologize.
recognizes
No.
Mr.
She
Perry.
should apologize.
Okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Green
I'm not
has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well,
seconds.
then
Okay,
you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am
Mr.
not
Perry.
apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
Why don't you debate me?
Mr. Chairman, the
it's
minority.
pretty
No,
self-evident.
Chair you're not.
Yeah, you're
out
not-
of order.
you don't have enough
You're out of order.
intelligence.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Okay, move to strike
I'd
the.
like to
I
strike
move to
those
strike the
words
lady's
as well.
words.
I move to
I would
strike-
like
Move to
to
strike
strike
the lady's
as well.
words again.
That's 2 requests to strike. That's 2 requests to strike.
Oh, they cannot take the
There's
words.
another motion to strike her words again. Please
All right.
get
Okay.
your members under
Here's
control.
the correct apology. Ms. Green, do you agree to unanimous consent to strike your words?
I repeat again for the second time. Yes, I'll strike
right.
my words,
That-
but I'm not
all right.
apologizing.
Without objection. Without
Not
objection.
apologizing.
So AOC brings up a good point. If you're not going to apologize for your comments, then what's the purpose of taking them down? You meant what you said. You need to stick by what you said. You need to apologize. It was offensive. It was very offensive. So Representative Jasmine Crockett, with a little help in a text message from her pastor, decided to clap back on this. And she had this question for the head of the committee, Representative James Comer of Kentucky. Take a listen.
Ms. Green, for 4 minutes and 21 seconds.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Who's
It's me.
Ms. Crockett?
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's a
Hold on.
I'm
parliament.
trying to find clarification on what qualifies.
Chairman,
I didn't-
motion to
I
strike
had no
those
idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just
You just voted to do
Y'all
it.
did it first, so you
You
don't
just
wanna talk
voted to
about it.
do
You
it.
say you're gonna have Marjorie
Order.
on
I'm
the
trying to
lead.
get
Okay.
clarification.
Look it, calm down. Calm
No,
down.
because this
I
is
would
what
like
y'all
to get
do.
through proceedings.
So I'm trying
Hey,
to get
Ms.
clarification.
Crockett, you're not
Y'all wanna
recognized.
play
Ms.
games,
Crockett.
I can't hear you with your
and
yelling.
You don't want
Calm
me to
down.
Be,
Can
no,
you please calm
don't
down?
tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all
Please
talk
calm
noise,
down.
and then you
You're
can't
out of
take
control.
Because if
Look,
I
Chairman,
come
can we
and
send
talk
outside
shit
to take a
about
break
her,
for 5
y'all
minutes?
gonna have a
Mr.
problem.
Chairman, Mr.
Order.
Chairman.
All right,
Sorry.
Chair.
I don't know why
Okay.
you're
Order.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body. I love it. So then it descended into chaos after that, with Jamie Raskin calling for the committee to be adjourned because they weren't getting any work done.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman. I think these 17-hour days might not work for us.
Something about working, huh?
Yeah, maybe showing up for a vote.
You have a lot to say, being that you're on retainer for the judge's daughter. Sorry, trust fund kid.
Mr. Chairman.
We should strike those words too.
I hope you brought your popcorn.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chairman.
Strike
we have to
those
strike
after
those as
we
well.
strike the
Mr.
fact that they
Chairman.
called they were making comments about Marjorie's body. So we can do
Mr.
this all night
Chairman.
long, but I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is out of
I'd like to
control.
get.
We should adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
And there you have it, folks. This the clips of what happened at this House Oversight Committee talking about Merrick Garland, and it turned into a nasty cat fight. And I tell you what, Jasmine Crockett, I love you. I need to have you on this show to talk about what happened, because this is absolutely beautiful. You took her down masterfully. It was great. Needed to happen for a long time, because Marjorie Taylor Greene won't shut her cake slot that's in between her nose and her chin. You know, it's the same hole that she uses to Trump or kiss his ass, whatever you want to call it. So to Marjorie Taylor Greene, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. The problem is with you, Marjorie, you can't help it. You were born a douchebag, and you've just gotten bigger. And that kind of leads to a sidebar that I want to give on this, because I've been sharing memes left and right on my personal Facebook having to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I've been sharing all sorts of memes about this, the bleached blonde, bad-built butch body. And I've been sharing a whole bunch of them, and I'm not quitting. I'm not going to quit until the last meme has been published. So I got a little bit of negative feedback about this, and I want to get to it here. It's a photo of Marjorie Taylor Greene walking down the steps of Congress, and it circles her hair and points out bleach blonde, circles the top portion of her body and says bad built, and then the bottom half of her body and says butch body, which got several likes and several laughs, at least a dozen. So one of my longtime friends, and I'm not going to mention her by name, said body shaming ain't it. My response to her was, as much as Marjorie Taylor Greene dishes it out, she can take it for once. I'm just quoting Representative Jasmine Crockett, which is the truth. That's all I'm doing, is posting memes of a quote from Jasmine Crockett. So I decided that it was time to put up a survey, just to see if I was right or wrong. Here's what I posted. Survey time. Is it okay to body shame a member of Congress who happens to body shame other members of Congress? Of course, I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Give me a yes or no and why in your responses. Results of this informal survey will be mentioned on next week's episode of Southpaws. So here they are in their entirety, folks. This went in my favor big time. My longtime supporter of this show, Pat, responded, yep, give a bully a taste of their own medicine. If they have no sense of decorum and no one holds them accountable, unleash on them. And then he added, P.S. Never go to a battle of wits unarmed, which got a laugh out of me. And I responded to him, poor Marjorie doesn't have a wit to spare, which she doesn't. King Chuck agreed. He said bullies need to be bullied themselves. Just look at all the AI songs on YouTube bashing the traitor. Including a link that he sent to me by the Rave Rascals, the title of the song, Bleach Blonde, Bad Built Butch Body. Let's see. One of my old professors at Grand Valley, he was an adjunct professor there, Dave, longtime volunteer GRTV as well, is now living out on the East Coast. Lucky him. Dave says, yes, of course, Greene thinks she's going to dish it out, and it drives her crazy to get it in return. I responded to Dave saying, then she plays the victim. It's typical conservative behavior, which it is. My friend Nikki posted a meme, and it says, Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about other women's lashes, and she looks like, I don't know what it is. But it's very ugly. My friend Candy Treat others how you want to be treated. At this point, it sounds like she's been asking for it for quite some time. Just saying. Lorraine, my buddy Lorraine. MTG opened the library to shade, then got mad when she was read to filth. I would verbally lit her ass on fire, too, in the sweetest voice possible. My friend Angela said, yep, f*** that big mouth bitch, which I gave that a big heart. And then the only negative about it, which was kind of not even negative, it was basically, it was more of a, let's say, less emotional. Raina, my former co-host at Women Libs Radio, which used to be a sister program of ours. Great program, as should still be going on to this day. It's a shame that it isn't. Raina responded. She said, I don't think body shaming is ever a good idea. It's not about the person's character or morals. It's making a statement about a body that looks a certain way, which many good people who don't deserve the scorn may share. There's enough valid fodder on MTG that there's no need to go there. However, I understand that a black woman felt compelled to clap back in the same fashion in which she was attacked. I'm not going to come for a black woman about that, but the rest of us can find other ways to express disdain for old Marge. And that includes giving old Marge douchebag of the week. So let's see. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1. 7 to 1, I'm the winner again. Beautiful stuff. So, yeah, old Marjorie Trader Green can take her bleach blonde, bad-built butch body back to Georgia, and I hope she gets unemployed this election. She should be in prison, sitting alongside the orange. I'm sorry, I'm not holding back my words about Trump anymore. I'm going to say it. If I got to bleep it out, I'll bleep it out. I don't care anymore, because things need to be said the way they need to be said, and you need to be as blunt as possible, because that's what the Republicans like to dish out. Conservatives want to be mean 24/7, but then when a liberal or a progressive claps back against them, they play the victim. I'm the victim. Oh, he said something mean to me. Well, you shouldn't have opened your in the first place. That's what you get. That's what you get when you're being a douchebag. Whoa, whoa. Sorry to steal that from Paramore, or at least partially steal that from Paramore. Speaking of Trump, let's get into our first story here. This is Michael R. Sizak, Jennifer Peltz, Eric Tucker, and Michelle L. Price writing for the Associated Press. This is dated May 29th out of New York City. The jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial ended its first day of deliberations without a verdict Wednesday, but asked to rehear testimony from key witnesses about the alleged hush money scheme at the heart of the history-making case. The 12-person jury was sent home around 4 p.m. after about 4.5 hours of deliberations. The process is to resume Thursday, when jurors are expected to rehear the requested testimony and at least part of the judge's legal instructions meant to guide them on the law. The notes sent to the judge with the request were the first burst of communication with the court after the panel of 7 men and 5 women was sent to a private room just before 11:30 a.m. to begin weighing a verdict. Judge Juan M. Merchant told jurors before dispatching them to deliberations, quote, "It is not my responsibility to judge the evidence here. It is yours," end of quote. He also reminded them of their vow during the selection process to judge the case fairly and impartially. It's unclear how long the deliberations will last. A guilty verdict would deliver a stunning legal reckoning for the presumptive Republican presidential nominee as he seeks to reclaim the White House, while an acquittal would represent a major win for Trump and embolden him on the campaign trail. Since verdicts must be unanimous, it's also possible that the case ends in a mistrial if the jury cannot reach a consensus after days of deliberations. Trump struck a pessimistic tone after leaving the courtroom following the reading of jury instructions, repeating his assertions of a very unfair trial. He said this, quote, "Mother Teresa cannot beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do," end of quote. Oh, give me a break. Mother Teresa couldn't... Bullshit! He remained inside the courthouse during deliberations, where he posted on his social media network complaints about the trial and quoted legal and political commentators who view the case in his favor. In one all-capital letters post, he proclaimed that he didn't even know what the charges are in this rigged case, even though he was present in the courtroom as the judge detailed them to jurors. So there you go there. He was probably sleeping through them. Donald Trump in the courtroom. Yeah, right there it is. Direct quote. He did not testify in his own defense, something the judge told jurors they cannot take into account, but I would anyway. Trump is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records at his company in connection with an alleged scheme to hide potentially embarrassing stories about him during his 2016 Republican presidential campaign. The charge, a felony, arises from reimbursements paid to then-Trump lawyer Michael Cohen after he made a $130,000 hush money payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels to silence her claims that she and Trump had sex in 2006. Trump is accused of misrepresenting Cohen's reimbursements as legal expenses to hide that they were tied to a hush money payment. Trump has pled not guilty and contends the Cohen payments were for legitimate legal services. He has also denied the alleged extramarital sexual encounter with Daniels. Yeah, by the way, he did this while Melania was pregnant. So there you go. To convict Trump, the jury would have to find unanimously that he created a fraudulent entry in his company's records or caused someone else to do so, and that he did so with the intent of committing or concealing another crime. The crime prosecutors say Trump committed or hid is a violation of a New York election law, making it illegal for two or more conspirators, quote, to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means, end of quote. While the jury must unanimously agree that something unlawful was done to promote Trump's election campaign, they don't have to be unanimous on what that unlawful thing was. The jurors, a diverse cross-section of Manhattan residents and professional backgrounds, often appeared riveted by testimony, including from Cohen and Daniels. Many took notes and watched intently as witnesses answered questions from prosecutors and Trump's lawyers. Jurors started deliberating after a marathon day of closing arguments Tuesday. A prosecutor spoke for more than 5 hours, underscoring the burden the district attorney's office faces in needing to establish Trump's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The Trump team need not establish his innocence to avoid a conviction, but must instead bank on at least one juror finding the prosecutors have not sufficiently proved their case. While giving the jury instructions in the law Wednesday morning, Merchant offered some guidance on factors the panel can use to assess witness testimony, including its plausibility, its consistency with other testimony, the witness's manner on the stand, and whether the person has a motive to lie. But the judge said, quote, there is no particular formula for evaluating the truthfulness and accuracy of another person's statement, end of quote. The principles he outlined are standard, but perhaps all the more relevant after Trump's defense leaned heavily on questioning the credibility of key prosecution witnesses, including Cohen. Jurors asked in the afternoon to rehear at least part of those instructions. They also asked to revisit select key episodes in the trial, though it was not clear why. The request covered testimony from Cohen and former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker about an August 2015 meeting with Trump at Trump Tower, where the tabloid boss pledged to be the eyes and ears of his fledgling presidential campaign. Pecker testified that the plan included identifying potentially damaging stories about Trump so they could be squashed before being published. That, prosecutors say, was the beginning of the catch-and-kill scheme at the heart of the case. Jurors also want to hear Pecker's account of a phone call he said he received from Trump, in which they discussed a rumor that another outlet had offered to buy former Playboy model Karen McDougal's story, alleging that she had a year-long affair with Trump in the mid-2000s. Trump has denied the affair. Pecker testified that Trump told him, quote, Karen is a nice girl, end of quote, and asked, quote, what do you think I should do? End of quote. Pecker said he replied, quote, I think you should buy the story and take it off the market, end of quote. He added that Trump told him he doesn't buy stories because they always get out and that Cohen would be in touch. The publisher said he came away from the conversation thinking Trump was aware of the specific of McDougal's claims. Pecker said he believed the story was true and would have been embarrassing to Trump and his campaign if it were made public. The National Enquirer's parent company, American Media Incorporated, eventually paid McDougal $150,000 for the rights to her story in an agreement that also included writing and other opportunities with its fitness magazine and other publications. The fourth item jurors requested is Pecker's testimony about his decision in October 2016 to back out of an agreement to sell the rights to McDougal's story to Trump through a company Cohen had established for the transaction. Such an agreement is known as an assignment of rights. Pecker testified, quote, "I called Michael Cohen and I said to him that the assignment deal is off. I am not going forward. It is a bad idea and I want you to rip up the agreement. He was very, very angry, very upset, screaming basically at me," end of quote. Pecker testified that he reiterated to Cohen that he wasn't going forward with the agreement. He said that Cohen told him, quote, "The boss is going to be very angry at you," end of quote. And that's the latest, folks. We'll keep you updated on the Donald Trump hush money trial as the jury deliberates, probably at least for the next several days. Although there was one pundit that said that he thinks that the jury could come back with a guilty verdict by Friday. Well, we don't know. We'll see what happens, but it should be interesting. I want to get to our next story here. This is Karen Matthews writing for the Associated Press. This is dated May 29th, also out of New York City. A nurse was fired by a New York City hospital after she referred to Israel's war in Gaza as a genocide during a speech accepting an award. Labor and delivery nurse Hessan Jaber, who is Palestinian American, was being honored by NYU Langone Health for her compassion in caring for mothers who had lost babies when she drew a link between her work and the suffering of mothers in Gaza. According to the video of the May 7th speech that she posted on social media, Jaber said, quote, "It pains me to see the women from my country going through unimaginable losses themselves during the current genocide in Gaza. This award is deeply personal to me for those reasons," end of quote. Jaber wrote on Instagram that she arrived at work on May 22nd for her first shift back after receiving the award when she was summoned to a meeting with the hospital's president and vice president of nursing, quote, "to discuss how I put others at risk and ruined the ceremony and offended people because a small part of my speech was a tribute toward the grieving mothers in my country," end of quote. She wrote that after working most of her shift, she was, quote, "dragged once again to an office," end of quote, where she was read her termination letter and then escorted out of the building. A spokesperson for NYU Langone, Stephen Ratea, confirmed that Jaber was fired following her speech and said that there had been, quote, "a previous incident as well," end of quote. Now, I say bullshit to that. In a statement, Ratea said, quote, "Hessan Jaber was warned in December following a previous incident not to bring her views on this divisive and charged issue into the workplace. She instead chose not to heed that at a recent employee recognition event that was widely attended by her colleagues, some of whom were upset after her comments. As a result, Jaber is no longer an NYU Langone employee," end of quote. Ratea did not provide any details of the previous incident. Of course not, because there wasn't one. They set her up. You want my opinion? Jaber defended the speech in an interview with the New York Times and said talking about the war, quote, "was so relevant," end of quote, given the nature of the award she had won. She said, quote, "it was an award for bereavement. It was for grieving mothers," end of quote. Gaza's Ministry of Health says more than 36,000 people have been killed in the territory during the war that started with the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. And it actually started in 1947 when Palestinians were kicked out of their homes. About 80% of Gaza's population of 2.3 million people had been displaced, and UN officials say parts of the territory are experiencing famine. Critics say Israel's military campaign amounts to genocide, and the government of South Africa formally accused the country of genocide in January when it asked the United Nations top court to order a halt to Israeli military operations in Gaza. Israel has denied the genocide charge and told the International Court of Justice it is doing everything it can to protect Gaza's civilian population. Bullshit! Jobber is not the first employee at the hospital, which was renamed from NYU Medical Center after a major donation from Republican Party donor and billionaire Kenneth Langone, to be fired over comments about the Mideast conflict. A prominent researcher who directed the hospital's cancer center was fired after he posted anti-Hamas political cartoons, including caricatures of Arab people. That researcher, biologist Benjamin Neal, has since filed suit against the hospital. Jobber's firing also is not the first time in the spotlight. When she was an 11-year-old in Louisiana, the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit on her behalf after she was forced to accept a Bible from the principal of her public school. She told the New York Times, quote, "This is not my first rodeo," end of quote. So I bet she's going to file a lawsuit too, probably discrimination. Meanwhile, we have this story from Ed White in Detroit. Ed's writing for the Associated Press. This is dated May 30th out of Detroit. Police broke up a pro-Palestinian encampment Thursday at Wayne State University in Detroit and arrested 8 people after organizers turned down offers to meet with school officials and refused to leave. President Kimberly Andrews Espy cited health and safety concerns and disruptions to campus operations. Staff were encouraged to work remotely this week, and in-person summer classes were suspended, and everything was moved to online. Espy said, quote, "No individual or group is permitted to claim campus property for their own use and deny others access to that property," end of quote. It's public property, you dumb lady. Unbelievable. She added that the camp, quote, "created an environment of exclusion, one in which some members of our campus community felt unwelcome and unable to fully participate in campus life," end of quote. Television videos showed Wayne State and Detroit police in riot gear tearing down fencing and breaking down tents erected May 23rd on green space near the undergraduate library. The protesters chanted, quote, "There's no riot here. Why are you in riot gear?" End of quote. 8 people were arrested, 6 for trespassing, 1 for resisting, and 1 for assaulting a police officer. That is according to Wayne State spokesperson Matt Lockwood. Protest camps sprang up across the U.S. and in Europe as students demanded their university stop doing business with Israel or companies that they say support its war in Gaza. Organizers seek to amplify calls to end Israel's war with Hamas, which they describe as a genocide against the Palestinians. Wayne State has 16,000 undergraduate students, but fewer during the summer term. The protesters have demanded that the school divest from weapons manufacturers supplying Israel, provide a full disclosure of investments, and cease delegation trips to Israel. Wayne State this week posted video of its efforts to invite protesters to private meetings with Espy and other officials if they would dismantle the camp. Lockwood said all were rejected. U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib, a Michigan Democrat, had visited the encampment to offer support to the protesters. Good for her. That's what needs to happen. Ali Hassan, who represents WSU Students for Justice in Palestine, told WXYZ television this week that he believed the university's shift to remote learning means the administration is taking notice of the students' protests. He said, quote, "The reason that they want remote is because we have put pressure on them," end of quote. The University of Michigan in Ann Arbor on May 21st broke up a similar encampment after 30 days. So there you go, folks. Universities silencing students is crap. I'll just be blunt. It's crap. Meanwhile, some good news. This is Joseph Wilson writing for the Associated Press. This is out of Barcelona, Spain, dated May 28th. Spain, Norway, and Ireland formally recognized a Palestinian state on Tuesday in a coordinated effort by the 3 Western European nations to add international pressure on Israel to soften its response to last year's Hamas-led attack. Israel condemned the diplomatic move, which will have no immediate impact on the war in Gaza. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said in a televised address from Madrid that, quote, "This is a historic decision that has a single goal, and that is to help Israelis and Palestinians achieve peace," end of quote. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz quickly lashed out at Spain on X, saying that Sanchez's government was, quote, being complicit in inciting genocide against Jews and war crimes, end of quote. Ireland and Norway soon joined Spain in formalizing a decision they had jointly announced the previous week. The Palestinian flag was raised in Dublin outside Leinster House, the seat of Ireland's parliament. Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris told lawmakers in Ireland's parliament after his cabinet formally signed off on the decision, quote, I hope this sends the Palestinian people a message of hope that in their darkest hour, Ireland stands with them. It is no longer enough just to condemn. It is no longer enough just to be repulsed. We must be on the right side of history, end of quote. Norwegian Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide said in a statement that, quote, for more than 30 years, Norway has been one of the strongest advocates for a Palestinian state. Today, when Norway officially recognizes Palestine as a state, is a milestone in the relationship between Norway and Palestine, end of quote. While around 140 countries have recognized a Palestinian state, more than two-thirds of the United Nations, none of the major Western powers has done so. Still, the adherence of 3 European countries to the group represents a victory for Palestinian efforts in the world of public opinion and will likely put pressure on European Union heavyweights France and Germany to rethink their position. Previously, only 7 members of the 27-state EU officially recognized a Palestinian state. 5 of them are former East Bloc countries that announced recognition in 1988, as did Cyprus before joining the EU. Sweden's recognition came in 2014. Relations between the EU and Israel have nosedived, with the diplomatic recognitions by 2 EU members and Madrid insisting on Monday that the EU should take measures against Israel for its continued deadly attacks in southern Gaza's city of Rafah. After Monday's meeting of EU foreign ministers, Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin said, quote, for the first time at an EU meeting in a real way, I have seen a significant discussion on sanctions, end of quote, on Israel. Harris, the Irish leader, insisted Tuesday that the EU should consider economic sanctions against Israel, saying, quote, Europe could be doing a hell of a lot more, end of quote. Norway, which isn't a European Union member but often aligns its foreign policy with the bloc, handed diplomatic papers to the Palestinian government over the weekend before its formal recognition. At the same time, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell threw his weight behind the International Criminal Court, whose prosecutor is seeking an arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others, including leaders of the Hamas militant group. The formal declaration and resulting diplomatic dispute comes more than 7 months into an assault waged by Israel following the October 7th Hamas-led attack in which militants stormed across the Gaza border into Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking about 250 hostages. Israelis' air and land attacks have killed 36,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry, which doesn't distinguish between combatants and civilians. The joint announcement by Spain, Ireland, and Norway last week triggered an angry response from Israeli authorities, which summoned the country's ambassadors in Tel Aviv to the foreign ministry, where they were filmed while being shown videos of the October 7th Hamas attack and abductions. Prime Minister Robert Golob of Slovenia said that Monday his government would decide on the recognition of a Palestinian state on Thursday and forward its decision to Parliament for final approval. Finnish state broadcaster YLE quoted President Alexander Stubb as saying that the Nordic country would recognize it, quote, at some stage in the future, end of quote, also on Tuesday. The U.S. and the United Kingdom, among others, backed the idea of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel, but said it should come as part of a negotiated settlement. Netanyahu's government says the conflict can only be resolved through direct negotiations. In his speech on Tuesday, Sanchez said that the recognition of a Palestinian state was, quote, a decision that we do not adopt against anyone, least of all against Israel, a friendly people whom we respect, whom we appreciate, and with whom we want to have the best possible relationship, end of quote. The socialist leader has spent months touring Europe and Middle Eastern countries, including stops in Oslo and Dublin, to garner support for the recognition of a Palestinian state. He called for a permanent ceasefire, for stepping up humanitarian aid into Gaza, and for the release of hostages still held by Hamas. Spain's Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez will meet with a group of U.S. allied Middle Eastern countries in Spain's capital on Wednesday, and Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, and the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Jordan. Sanchez said that his intention was to back the beleaguered Palestinian Authority, which lost effective political control of Gaza to Hamas. He laid out his vision for a state ruled by the Palestinian Authority that must connect the West Bank and Gaza via a corridor with East Jerusalem as its capital. The Western-backed Palestinian Authority administers part of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, cooperates with Israel on security matters, and favors a negotiated two-state solution. His forces were driven out of Gaza by Hamas when the militants seized power there in 2007. The Palestinians have long sought an independent state in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, territories Israel captured in the 1967 Mideast War. The idea of a land corridor linking Gaza and the West Bank through Israel was discussed in previous rounds of peace talks, but no serious or substantive peace negotiations have been held in more than 15 years. Sanchez added, quote, "We will not recognize changes in the 1967 border lines other than those agreed to by the parties. Furthermore, this decision reflects our absolute rejection of Hamas, a terrorist organization who is against the two-state solution. From the outset, Spain has strongly condemned the terrorist attacks on October 7th. This clear condemnation is the resounding expression of our steadfast commitment in the fight against terrorism. I would like to underline that starting tomorrow, we would focus all our efforts to implement the two-state solution and make it a reality," end of quote. Ireland's government said it would appoint an ambassador and create a full embassy in Ramallah in the West Bank. Norway will upgrade its diplomatic office in the West Bank to an embassy. Spain said that for the moment it will maintain its consulate in Jerusalem, although Israel has said that the consulate won't be allowed to attend to Palestinians. Barth-Eide, the Norwegian foreign minister, added Tuesday that, quote, "It is regrettable that the Israeli government shows no signs of engaging constructively. The recognition is a strong expression of support for moderate forces in both countries," end of quote. So there's the latest happening with the recognition by Norway, Ireland, and Spain of Palestine. So there we go there. I want to get to our next story here. This is Matthew Lee writing for the Associated Press. This is dated May 30th out of Prague, Czechoslovakia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Thursday assailed Russian attempts to sow discord in democracies with information after hinting the Biden administration may soon allow Ukraine to use American-supplied munitions to strike inside Russia. In Prague for a NATO foreign ministers meeting, Blinken hit out at Moscow's use of misinformation and disinformation, calling it a poison and signing an agreement with the Czech government to combat it. He also toured a Czech military base where he saw armored vehicles that Prague is sending to Kyiv to help Russia's invasion and received a briefing on a Czech initiative to supply Ukraine with 1 million rounds of ammunition by the end of the year. Blinken said, quote, "We know that a major front in the competition that we have, the adversarial relationship that we have, notably with Russia, is on the information front," end of quote. He said the agreement with the Czechs, the 17th such accord the U.S. has signed with partner nations, would help, quote, "to effectively deal with misinformation and disinformation, which is a poison being injected into our democracies by our adversaries," end of quote. Blinken told reporters at a signing ceremony with Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky, quote, "The more we're able to do together, both between our countries but also with other countries, the more effective we're going to be exposing it and dealing with it," end of quote. Lipavsky agreed, noting that Czech authorities had recently exposed a major Russian-backed misinformation campaign. Lipavsky said, quote, "We are facing confrontation between democracies and autocracies. The Kremlin has started targeting democracies all around the world with cyber warfare, propaganda, and influence operations, and this danger simply cannot be underestimated anymore," end of quote. At a separate NATO-related event on Thursday, Lipavsky said Ukraine needs resources to counter Russia's relentless assault. He said, quote, "Ukraine cannot fight against Russia with one hand tied behind its back. Ukraine must be able to fight against Russia's barbaric invasion even on Russian territory. Political resolve must be backed by credible capabilities, end of quote. Norway's Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide told Norwegian broadcaster NRK that his country believes Ukraine, quote, has a crystal clear right under international law to attack Russia inside Russia as part of the defense of its territory, end of quote. Russia's invasion of Ukraine and support for Ukrainian attempts to repel it will be a major focus of the NATO foreign ministers meeting on Thursday and Friday, the alliance's last major diplomatic gathering before a leaders' summit in Washington in July to mark the 75th anniversary of its founding. On Wednesday in Moldova, Blinken said the U.S. policy on how Ukraine deploys American weapons is constantly evolving, suggesting that Washington may rescind an unwritten prohibition on Ukraine's use of them for attacks on Russian territory. Although U.S. officials insist there is no formal ban, they have long made clear that they believe the use of American weapons to attack targets inside Russia could provoke an escalatory response from Moscow, something the Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised. That position appears to be being reconsidered, and Blinken noted that it was a hallmark of the Biden administration's stance in Ukraine to adapt and adjust as needed. Blinken visited Kiev earlier this month and heard a direct appeal from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to use U.S. military assistance to strike positions in Russia from where attacks on Ukraine are launched. Blinken said at a news conference in Chisinau, quote, as the conditions have changed, as the battlefield has changed, as what Russia does has changed in terms of how it's pursuing aggression, escalation, we've adapted and adjusted to, and I'm confident we'll continue to do that, end of quote. He added this, quote, at every step along the way, we've adapted and adjusted as necessary, and so that's exactly what we'll do going forward. We're always listening, we're always learning, and we're always making determinations about what's necessary to make sure that Ukraine can effectively continue to defend itself, and will continue to do that, end of quote. Earlier this week, French President Emmanuel Macron and NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said that Western countries should not object if Ukraine needs to strike inside Russia to defend itself. And there you go. So this might be going somewhere. Yeah, I think Putin's figured out he messed with the wrong country when he started messing with the Ukraine. We have some good news finally. Let's get to this story. This is Sean Murphy and Andrew DeMillo writing for the Associated Press. This is dated May 29th. A Texas Democratic lawmaker who broke with her party by supporting a ban on gender-affirming care for minors was ousted in a primary runoff that galvanized LGBTQ plus groups nationwide, who then campaigned for her opponent in the race for the South Houston seat. Representative Sean Thierry's defeat followed 4 terms in which the Houston lawmaker typically joined her fellow Democrats on major issues, including voting against aggressive immigration measures demanded by Republican Governor Greg Abbott and a ban on diversity programs on college campuses. But she outraged Democratic colleagues when she gave a 12-minute speech on the Texas House floor last year defending a proposed ban on gender-affirming care for minors. 3 other Democrats also voted for the measure, but none were as vocal as Thierry, who lost by double digits Tuesday night to challenger Lauren Ashley Simmons, a union organizer. Former Houston Mayor Anise Parker, the president and CEO of the LGBTQ plus Victory Fund, which supported Simmons' bid, said, quote, her vote was why she had a race, but when she doubled down and went really down the rabbit hole of misinformation, it energized folks in the LGBTQ community, end of quote. Simmons will be favored to win the seat in November in the district, which is heavily Democratic. A message left Wednesday with Thierry's campaign was not immediately returned, but during an emotional debate on the bill last year, Thierry said her vote in support of the ban aligned with her conscience and the values of her constituency. Thierry said, quote, I am making a decision to place the safety and well-being of all young people over the comfort of political expediency. It is my core belief and conclusion that we should remain consistent in the premise that children must be given special provisions under the law as they cannot fully appreciate the long-term consequences of their actions, end of quote. While most Democrats support the rights, safety, and visibility of LGBTQ plus adults and children, Many Democrats nationally have been struggling to counter a barrage of GOP attacks on LGBTQ plus people, particularly transgender people. Simmons had the support of LGBTQ plus groups in Texas and nationwide. The Political Action Committee of the Human Rights Campaign endorsed her challenge against Thierry and called and texted more than 2,000 people in support of her bid. Equality Texas, another group, hosted block walks for Simmons, ran ads, and established a website for Simmons. Grant Martin, a political consultant with Simmons' campaign, said that while other Democrats also voted for the ban, Thierry doubled down on her support for the ban. Martin said, quote, "Our opponent after that vote actually went on Fox propaganda channel and defended her vote and spread some of these Republican talking points," end of quote. Martin said Thierry also faced criticism for her support from several Republican campaign donors. Thierry touted the support of black pastors in the district that stretches across South and Southwest Houston. Mark Jones, a Rice University political science professor, said the race is likely to leave an impression with other Democrats. Jones said, quote, "This sends a clear message to Democratic elected officials that if you break with the party on key issues, you really run the risk of getting primaried and removed from office. It's the same type of purge and litmus test we've seen in the Republican Party recently," end of quote. So I want to get to this paragraph here. Thierry touted the support of black pastors in the district that stretches across South and Southwest Houston. I'm going to say something controversial right now. I don't care who I offend. In my findings, in my personal opinion, I have found that black people hate LGBTQ plus people. Period. End of story. She touts her support of black pastors. What do they have against LGBTQ plus people? I saw it firsthand when I was running a Pacifica affiliate in Grand Rapids, Michigan, because one of my black volunteers, I made mention of somebody who was bisexual, and he was just disgusted with it. What the hell is wrong with black people allowing LGBTQ people to be discriminated against? They should be allies, because the blacks have been so discriminated against for so many years, decades, couple of centuries in this country alone, and still being discriminated against. Why don't they form alliances and help support each other instead of just, "Oh, you're gay, I don't want to be around you"? Because that I'm sorry, that's what I get from this. That is just exactly what I get from this. And if you have any problem with what I'm saying, you can write me directly my email, southpawsradio@gmail.com. I'll read them on the air. And that includes your name, too. I do. I hate the discrimination the black people have against LGBTQ people, particularly trans people. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And I want to get to one more story here. I might actually have to get to a couple of stories here. I want to get to some local stuff. This is from the Holland Sentinel. This is Mitchell Boltman writing May 29th out of Ottawa County, Michigan. We haven't talked about Ottawa County for a few weeks, so we need to get this in. The newest member of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners has officially taken office. Chris Kleinjans was sworn in as the District 2 Commissioner on Tuesday, May 28th, ahead of the board's monthly evening meeting. He defeated Ottawa Impact-affiliated Republican Lucy Ebel in a recall election May 7th. It's the first time in known history the two Democrats have served on the board. This is monumental, folks. Kleinjan's first meeting agenda was relatively uneventful. A handful of appointments, official establishment of a material management planning committee, and a brownfield redevelopment public hearing. The meeting lasted just 90 minutes. All votes taken were unanimous by those present. And yet the adversarial undertones that have become commonplace in Ottawa County meetings remained. Three commissioners, Gretchen Cosby, Rebecca Kern, and Roger Belknap, were absent Tuesday. Another left during the first public comment session. Toward the end of the first public comment session, which saw 13 speakers, Commissioner Roger Bergman expressed frustration with a showing of support for political candidates, namely interim county administrator John Anderson in his run for sheriff. Bergman said, quote, "Mr. Chairman, this is not a place for campaigning. I'm out of here. When you're ready to do the business of the county, I'll be back. This is not the business of the county." End of quote. Bergman left the meeting and did not return. Doug Zylstra removed a pair of CMH appointments previously approved by the Talent and Recruitment Committee from the consent agenda Tuesday to question why they weren't approved earlier. 2 primary consumer vacancies became vacant at the end of March as terms expired. A primary consumer is an individual who receives services from CMH. State law dictates at least 1/3 of a CMH board must either be primary consumers or family members of primary consumers. Of that third, at least half must be primary consumers. For the county's 12-member board, that equates to 2 mandatory primary consumer seats. Yeah, so 2 primary consumer seats and 2 more that can be family members or primary. The 2 consumers who ended up being appointed, one of whom Stephen Savage had already served, applied for the seat by the end of February during the initial application window. Instead of recommending appointments in March, the application period was reopened. Allison Miedema, chair of the Talent and Recruitment Committee, spoke about the seats during a full board meeting that month. At the time, Miedema said interviews still needed to be conducted. Zylstra asked if that would be done in time for the April committee meeting. Miedema indicated it would be. The committee meeting was later canceled. In the meantime, Stephen Savage's term on the board expired. Zylstra said he was concerned Savage was termed off the board before being reappointed. Miedema said Tuesday the situation hadn't fallen far from how, quote, "we've handled the other appointments in the past," end of quote. She added there have been times the committee has reopened applications to allow for more people to apply. She did not offer specifics on why the positions were reopened when eligible applicants had already applied. Jacob Bonema asked how Savage's situation was different from Vonnie Vanderswag, the previous chair of the CMH board, whom the board refused to reappoint because she didn't apply to keep her seat in time. Bonema asked at the time why they couldn't extend a courtesy to an experienced board member. Miedema said interviews had already been conducted and it would be unfair to reopen the application process. Miedema didn't answer the question about Vanderswag on Tuesday. Savage and Robin Wick were unanimously appointed to the board. During his regular update, Anderson said that Human Resources Director Marcy Verbeek has submitted a letter of resignation. Anderson said, quote, "she's accepted employment someplace else and called it a new opportunity," end of quote. He thanked Verbeek for 16 years with the county and for help during first months as interim administrator. Verbeek joins a long list of elected officials and department leaders to leave in the last year. Since October, Prosecutor Lee Fisher, Treasurer Amanda Price, Probate Judge Mark Fangen, Sheriff Steve Kempker, Undersheriff Valerie Weiss, Deputy Health Officer Marcia Mansoray, and Administrator John Whalefeces Gibbs have all either retired, announced they weren't seeking re-election, or have been fired. So there's the latest of what's happening in Ottawa County. Whoa, 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 whoa. We got to stop here. The jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial has reached a verdict and has asked for about 30 minutes to fill out the form. This is from Nexstar out of New York City. This is happening right now as we record to tape. So we're going to pause the recording right now and we'll be back once we know the results. All right, we are back. We have a verdict. And all 34 counts, Donald Trump guilty. Donald Trump is guilty on 34 counts involving his New York hush money trial. Oh my God, this is a great day to celebrate. Go out and have a cold one. Be safe and don't drink and drive. Oh my God, I'm going to have one tonight. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson. Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.